All right, welcome YouTubers. 2018 NFL picks. I'm back. GreatDanePicks.com. You can reach me at picks@GreatDanePicks.com. And these are my free picks for this year. Let me start out as an intro. I may pretend like you never saw my channel before. What I'm going to do is I'll give out free picks for the NFL. Weeks 3 or 4 usually I start. Turns out I start at week 4 this year, and I'll go through 17, in other words, the regular season. And, picks are absolutely free. Maybe good, maybe bad. General disclaimer of you may lose money or you may win money, right? So hopefully we'll win money this year. The other thing that I tend to do is I tend to track other YouTube pickers in the regular season and just give you an idea of, well, I only track sort of the better guys, but if you're on my list. But I'm always looking for other pickers that do what I do, just to see how I stack up and where I'm at, and I'll let you in a little bit of that later. Basically, the way I work, just for background before I give my picks for this week, and you can ignore the picks for this week because not a lot of money. It's only one of my systems, but I do have an algorithm where I go out, set out to find value. The way that ATS, or against the spread, picks generally work is that, I guess there's a lot of myths, but and I don't know for sure. I don't set the lines and do the stuff at the various places that you can bet, like casinos or online or at your local bookie. But most of them subscribe, so your average casino will subscribe to a line setting service, right? A bunch of professionals that get paid for setting lines based upon all kinds of variables, including how the team's strengths are and probably some exposure to how people in general bet. And then once they achieve that number for a given week, a given game, a given matchup, they will typically either adjust the line a little bit depending upon their clientele, or they'll want to, try to gain clientele or whatever they want to do. They'll adjust it a little bit, or they'll take it as is. Usually it's not too far off. The myth is always that, the casinos and the books would like to balance action. Well, that's absolutely true, but they don't go around moving the line like crazy. If you look at it that way, and that, popular teams against unpopular teams, let's just use the Patriots and the Browns as examples, is that, the Patriots will generally gander a lot of popular votes, and so that action, regardless of the line that they set, which might be, I don't know, if they do -3, then a lot of people jump on the bandwagon. It'll be 80-20 in a population. They're trying to get usually less than 60%. That would be great, and maybe they'll move the line a little bit during the week. Injuries is probably one you might see. But if they move the line tremendously all the time, then you'd have a major impetus for somebody betting one side, driving the line up, and then dumping a larger amount of cash on the opposite side, and typically getting great value that way, and you can clean out a house doing that. So houses typically don't do that, right? So always the question is you versus a house or you versus other bettors? Well, clearly the money comes from the losing bettors, and the house takes its vig. But after that, it's kind of you versus the house, or really you versus the line setters, or how they're adjusting their lines and their payouts. So not as much skill necessarily like you versus other bettors, but as you would tend to believe. But it's always there, and it's a big marketplace, not like sitting down at a small poker table. I said that before. So my algorithm sets out to find methods in that. Talk about money management, because that's the other half of what you need to do. You can take straight up picks and go bet them ATS. That's what I have to do sort of in contests and stuff, but in the real world you can bet as much as you want, like no limit poker or whatnot, versus limit poker, right? So when you can bet an unlimited amount, then that makes a difference. So my martingale is a 3-stage. And why do I have 3 stages? Well, 1 stage isn't a martingale. 2, didn't get a lot of success on that. 3, I ended up getting some pretty good success, and then 4, it kind of explodes. If you're used to martingale, you hear a lot in blackjack, right? And so it's a bad thing in blackjack because you have a less than 50% chance of winning. But if you have a greater than 50% chance of winning, martingales are a good thing because they'll sort of even out that roughness of what you got. So my stages are pretty simple. At least here's what I use. If you look at the second line, the first stage I'll bet $1.10, and I'm not sure you can bet $1.10 or whatever in the casinos anymore. Certainly not. Maybe online you can still bet $1.10, but just multiply this by whatever scale you want, whatever bankroll you have. So whether it's $1.10 or $110 or $220, right? Just figure out your scale. But you'll get back with minus 110 odds. You'll get back $10 for every $11 you bet, or you get a profit of $1 if you win. In a stage 2, assuming if you win, you're done with stage 1. If you lose, then you'll bet more money. I've sort of got a progressive martingale, so it's 341, and you'll win 310 back at minus 110 odds. Of course, you spent $1.10 on stage 1. That gives you a $2 profit. Stage 3 works the same way. 826 is a 751, but you take off 451 for the first 2 stages, and it's a $3 profit. And finally, if you lose all 3, then you bust out and you lose $12.77. So you want to avoid doing that, right? But you also need to look for opportunities. That's where I get that sort of a 13-to-1 ratio. That's why it's not really a 13-to-1 because I'll win on average about $1.60 or something like that. So it's more like an 8-to-1, but I'm looking for opportunities where I get 8-to-1. So historically, I have, out of 100 opportunities, and I'll define opportunities in a little bit, but it's my go word, right? I'm going to start my martingale this week on a certain game or certain team. I have historically, I added it up, and this is like a 2015. I was looking when I kind of did these numbers, but they changed a little bit year to year, of course. But I had won 48 out of the 100 opportunities, or 48% the first week. So I tended to actually lose that week, which is okay because I actually optimized my algorithm to go win the other stages where there's more money available. But the 52 games would go on to stage 2, and I'd win sort of mid-50s to upper 50s percentile. 52.4 is what you usually look at for breaking even with a minus 110 odds. So I'd win about 30 of those, and the other 22 would go to stage 3. And stage 3 I always did pretty well, like mid-60s to upper to high 60s percent. I was a percentage on that game, and it was 15 out of those 22 would be a $3 profit, and then 7 times I would bust out. And that would kind of be my history over 100. I did that for many years. And so 93% of the time I'd end up winning something, right? And the 7% of the time I'd end up crapping out in this 3-stage martingale, which is kind of like why I liked it. So the bets in that regards, if I look at the next line, I would have put out $469 for that 100 opportunities. And I would have won 153 once you do 48 times 1, 30 times 2, and 15 times 3. $153 in profit, and the 7 bust outs would have cost me $89, $39, or $90. So I'd have a $64 profit or whatever that is, right? But in 2015, I really looked at this data and I said, you know what? Forget stage 1. I'm losing money in that stage. Why don't I just do stage 2 and 3? I'll still count stage 1. As I'll have to wait, and I'll just not play those. But I'll play a lot less opportunities doing that. I'll lose 48. I'll be doing only 52 out of the 100. I'll be betting any money on in stage 2 or 3. But what turns out is, I'll lose that first 110, so it goes down to 359 total bets. My profit got a little bit better because those stage 2 and stage 3, I win a little bit more money, $1.10 more for each of those because I'm not spending money on stage 1. It was $154.50, and my bust outs were less money too because I also wasn't paying that $1.10. So I lost another $7 off, so it's minus 81. So now I'm making a little more profit, like 60 something, right? It's high 60s, and that's okay. Thought that would work pretty well. That's kind of my current martingale scheme. I also said, well, why don't I just do stage 3 and try to get into these contests, or try to do numbers that work a little better for people, because the variable betting isn't working if you want to try to compare or contest people. And I said, all right, so if I just do the 3rd stage, right, now I'm only playing 22 games out of the 100 opportunities. So again, I'm playing a lot less games. My total layout would be $181.72. I'd only win $112.65, so I'd win less. And I'd also lose less. I'd lose $57.82, and that's a difference of like 55, right? We said, well, 55, that's less than the 65, right? Why would you do that? Well, something called scaling, where I'm also using half the bankroll that I would have for the 359, right? 181 versus 360. So I can theoretically bet twice as much, and then that 55 becomes 110. So that's the way gambling works. Scalability is something that's important, in that how much money you need to have in your bankroll. So let me talk about my systems. This is what I really want to get to, is just to say, okay, so understand as a new person what I do. I kind of have 3 systems out there, at least since 2015 I've been doing it. So system A is what I call my multiple system. I've only bet stage 3, so you're not going to be making a whole lot of bets. But I do stack indicators, and so those indicators might line up. Now my indicators might be, okay, I might have so-and-so happens, and the team is here, and then I'm going to bet week 10. And then another week might come along, and I also say the best week to bet on that one is week 10. So now I've got a double stacked up. Well, I will bet that team on multiples. Now, a lot of them just end up being the single bets, and those bets are a 1K on a $20,000 bankroll, and you can scale up and down, like I said, wherever you want. But on certain weeks and certain factors, I might bet 2 or 3, and late in the year, it might even be like 5 times. So you might see, oh, Miami 5x, right, or something. So I'd be betting 5,000 on that team. Hopefully I've won some money by then, so I'm not totally eating into my bankroll. I'm taking it off free roll money. But that's the way my system works. System B, or my fixed system, is the same picks, same stage 3 only, except for when they come up, instead of doing multiples and stacking each other, I'll just bet the 2K fixed, or 10% of my bankroll. So 10% of the 20K is 2K. And that's the most sort of analogous. I was trying to get something that would get closer to contest style, where you can't bet more. You could probably bet less or more, but typically there's a cap on what you can bet, and that cap is what you'd bet in a contest. But you can do it in the real world too, right? So the last system, system C, or my martingale, I said was bet on stages 2 and 3, and I'm betting, instead of $3.41, you could multiply that by 200, or 682, and stage 3 is 1652, and I also stack indicators on that too, so you might be betting like 1 third stage and 2 second stages, so 1652 plus 682 times 2. So it gets anyways, the money management is variable all over there. That's my martingale, and I should win X% of the time, and we'll see how it does, right? I did bump those numbers up from 2015 to 2016, and I'll talk about that when we talk about results here, right? So let me go to the year-to-year performance. Now, prior to 2015, I just did my 3-stage martingales, and I did poorly in 2014, good 2010 to 2013. 2015, I did very well, as you can see. But one of the problems is that I believe, I'll have to take a look at the chart, but certainly my martingale only used like 50% of my bankroll. So I said after 2016 and 2017, I figured I'd double my amount, and that's where I got that 682 instead of 341. Well, that hasn't worked tremendously well. I've blown over the cap and had to spend more money, like $25,000 in bankroll, which changes your ROI numbers, and I didn't do it here. But it was the poorest performer. The martingale wasn't the poorest performer if I double it, right? If I doubled the bet and use the entire bankroll. So I need to figure a number. I haven't quite figured it out. So the martingale is a little aggressive on the 20K. So you might prepare for a little bit more money than that and just scale accordingly. But anyways, 2015, very well. You can see I'm pretty much doubled my money in at least the first 2 systems. 95 and 87% are good returns, profiting 19,000 and change on a 20,000 bankroll. That's going to work just fine. 2016, not as great of a gains. And again, we'll take a look at the charts there. Fixed in particular didn't do great. Not that 6.34% return over 3 months is good or bad. You can get that probably anywhere, but 22 is really good, right? 29 is very good too. And 2017, unfortunately, I had another 2014, and we'll talk about that and somehow the other performers did. At the end of the day, as I've aged and got more experience, I just said, hey, sometimes things don't happen, and all the pickers were kind of down that year, and I'll show that when I get to the YouTube pickers. So that's how my performance is. Now, how you got there year to year is just as important as the end results. I'm just dealing with end results. You can quit at any time and do it. All three of these charts, the top one is 15, the middle one is 2016, and the bottom one is 2017. You probably want to view these on a full screen computer as opposed to your smartphone. But nonetheless, you'll see, I'll start anywhere from weeks 3 to 4 or something like that. 5, 6 is a little bit down typically. But then at least by week 7, I'm putting in a decent amount. Now, the hollow dots are the percentage of my bankroll that I've consumed, either through losing bets or putting money out at the beginning of the week. And then the solid dots are the return from that week. So in week 7, I put out, if you look at the top graph, 2015, I put out 50% on my martingale, which is the black circle. The diamond was a little over 50% on the multiple scheme, and then my fixed scheme was the full 20K was put out there. Now, they returned profits that week. I typically won. I did really well that week, and thus on the positive side, above the zero, you'll see that my blue was up over 25, between 25 and 50. My orange is right at 25, and my martingale black was 15% or whatever it is on week 7, and that follows through, and it kept climbing through the year, and that's how I ended up with those really high numbers. Now, 2016, sort of the same thing. Week 6 was a little bit down. I actually lost. And then week 7, I came back, and 2 of the systems, but the martingale was down. Now, the martingale was using more than the full bankroll. You see it pops off the screen, whereas my other 2 never really used the whole year more than about 60% of the bankroll. So scalability again, but that's the way it is. I'm kind of staying where it is. So now they went down towards week 10, and then they came back up, and finally by week 15, I got most of the highest. I could have quit out there, but then some of them went down near the end, and all of them went down a little bit at the end, and I ended up with those final numbers. I'll deal with the final numbers of the mid, like again, between 0 and 50, right, or 66 and 30%. In 2017, same type of thing. I did have an opportunity at week 8 to get out with almost 50, above 25% for sure, or at least around 25%. And then it went down. And then what happened in week 10 is it usually starts to climb back up, but I just went way, way down, and you see the lines go up to almost the full bankroll of loss. And then it came back late in the year to be under 25% loss. But, anything can happen. That's the way it is. Just a reminder that I don't use lines per se in my videos, and I don't accept other people's lines necessarily. Not that they cheat or don't cheat, but I tend to do covers.com, what's available at their game time line. I know it might be different on Tuesday than it is on Sunday afternoon, but trying to just compare people, I try to be even that way. It works out. It's not the best system necessarily, and what you get in the real world at your bookie might not be even what covers lays out there, but at least I can compare one to the other. But if I take a video, then you can make any plus or minus claim. You might not even be able to bet that claim at the lines that you bet. Like I usually do Bovada, or it used to be Bodog, right? And for 5 dimes, and sometimes that betting's not available, so you just couldn't get that line no matter what. Well, any game that's between the real line or the finish line and what your YouTube video person says is the line and claims to be the line, it's going to add up perhaps to a few games a year and make a difference. And some people just drastically cheat their real scores. And I got videos that cover that on my website. So that's the end of that intro presentation. Sorry for the boredom, but that's the way I am. So along with that, here's our week 3 results to date. And these guys here in the boxes are martingale starters. And unfortunately, since I'm not really betting the first stage, but I won 4 of my 5 martingales in week 3, which means only Chicago was a loser. So Chicago moves to stage 2 this week. I believe they're playing the Bucks at home, and they're whatever. I think they're a 3-point favorite, so basically an even game at home. So again, this is some of my unluckiness. I'm not, when teams win the first week, they drop out of my martingale, and I would have got a small amount of profit if I was just betting the dollar, but I decided not to do that because historically I was hitting 48%. Part of my luck last year, so I'm a little sour on that. But anyways, Chicago this week, A system and B system, the multiple and the fixed have no picks, and Chicago this week will be 682 for my martingale, and we'll see how they do. And if they win, we'll make a little bit of money there, and if they lose, they will go to stage 3. And again, not a lot of money, 682 against a 20,000 bankroll so far. We're just getting started. Don't really need to. You can fall asleep till about week 6 in general with me. Then things potentially get a little exciting. I've got a bunch of people on queue. I'll put that out next week for people starting. I even have some multiples. San Francisco is stacking up on me. So we'll see how that goes. Last thing I want to do is a look at the YouTube history and kind of explain for newcomers where I've tracked myself via the covers.com line and who my competitors that I track are. Not that there aren't a lot of people giving out YouTube picks, but not as many people giving out ATS picks. These have to be ATS, and they have to be true ATS. You can't. Over-unders are not ATS, and other props like the weather are not ATS. In 2017, you can see what I said, that most of these, if I highlight these guys, most of us did poorly, as opposed to 2016 where you got a mix of people. 2017 seemed to be a tough picking week. Again, these are fairly good pickers, including myself. The only one that made any reasonable profit is one of my nemesises. So let's talk about my nemesis. All right. Teddy Bear Industries is sort of a cheeky little video. He's from the Chicago area. He's got Cowboy Boom. Talks in a high squeaky voice with a teddy bear. But of course I talk with a Great Dane. So whatever, right? It's all good. Now he does pretty good. And he made pretty good ground on me last year because I lost. I should mention here that this is like straight picks, and I'm just comparing us with a $2,000 bet. So $2,000 if you lose, plus $18 in profit. Here's the formula. If you win, so I went 30 and 32 last year, sub 500. That would have cost me $9 grand to $10 grand, right? Almost $10 grand. In that scheme, over 62 games that I would have picked, or 62 opportunities. Cowboy Boom, he did 30 and 25, so he does small amount of picks. Just like, again, the more you pick, the more likely you are to lose, because the games, not all games are equal, and if you try to pick the hard games, then so be it. Now, Cowboy Boom, like I said, he's from the Chicago area, Teddy Bear Industries, and he tends to make a pretty good living historically over betting against the Bears, or the Chicago Bears, as he calls it. And so that served him pretty well. If I go, I've been tracking him back to, I think he started in 2014. I started in 2013 on the videos between the channels, and I went to 2015. I did the Great Dane, but he had a really good start in 2014. That's what caught my attention. The next year he was way down, as was a lot of people, but I was way up that year. 2016 he was up pretty good. You can see the money. And 2017 he was the lone star. So he made up 10, 15 grand on me. 2018 we can ignore so far. I'll talk about it in a little bit. Now these totals out here are through 2017. They don't include the 2018. So over those number of years, he would have been 119 and 95, 26,000, 55.6% winner, and on a per game basis, he's winning 123. Now per game is your efficiency. So it's important to it's nice to be efficient. It's nice to win money. All kinds of rates like that. Rates are kind of baked in there with the same thing with the money and the amount of games. I historically, over that 2013 to 2017 was 169, 179, 136. 53 grand for a 56.8% win rate, which isn't as good as I had hoped to be, but that's my YouTube jinxes, when historically my stage 3 was much higher, like mid 60s. But that's $170 per game. So yeah, so I was a little bit higher than that, obviously, last year, up near 200s. You kind of break these into brackets where there's around 200, around 100, just sub that. Cowboy Boom was sub 100, but he's broke the 123 a game, so good competitor to watch. I'll let a little bit out of the bag. He's 3-10 so far for the first 3 weeks, so he's dug himself quite a hole. We'll see how that translates. He was only 26,000 up to start with, so that's really going to hurt him if he continues. Now he's come back in the past. He can still come back. It's early in the season, but he's in a little bit of a hole so far, so I'm not cheerful of that. I want everybody to win. But as a competitor, that would drop him out. So another guy out here who started in 2015 was Logan Schiff, and he gives a video portion of picks, but then he picks everybody in his description. I'm always a little leery of the description because it's text, and you can change the text after the fact, like years after, and make yourself a winner. But so far he doesn't do that, from what I can see. And he did really well, so he picks every game in his description, and this is an example where he does particularly well, especially the first year. He was 64-36, and he came in mid-year. So that's why he's only had 100 picks. But you can see that number is outstanding, 44 grand. But then he lost money the next year, and he lost money the next year, even despite having a slightly positive record. And he's losing money again like hell this year. So he's actually going to be net negative by the time, as a current status today. But he does really a little bit better on his video descriptions, as you can see. He is picking $79 a game, or 54.5%, 104 and 87, and he is 8-7 on the year so far in what he says on the video, which is a subset of every game. So I expect his description will crap out eventually. You just can't make that many picks a year. He's making 180 picks here, over 200 picks. I think he skipped a few weeks last year around Thanksgiving time. Half Moon, another guy, really good production. I don't spend as much on production as he does, not by a long shot. But he's a Tampa Bay area guy. I call him the second best picker in Tampa Bay. I'm also Tampa Bay, although my home team is Tampa Bay. He seems to be a Detroit Lions fan or ex-transplant. He can just easily go 4-0 more often than he goes 0-4, and he's usually pretty consistent. He is 53.3. He is a winner. The last of my winners, 144 and 126 overall, 6-6 on the year. But in general, maybe need to spend a little more time picking or investigating or watching tape than some of his fantastic videos with Thanksgiving specials and whatnot, right? The Sports Guy show, I really can't listen to him this year. He's got a long show. The first year is all ATS, which is 2015. After that, he's gone to these teaser stuff. And don't believe the teaser win. He needs to. I did actually come down here and just market it that I got, like last year, he was 70-31 when he recommended a teaser. And it's always tough to tell if he's taking them straight up, like money line, or if he's doing it ATS, or if he's doing a martingale. And if he's doing it, I'm not a martingale, a teaser, 6-point teaser, 2-team. So it's always hard to tell, like, what 2 teams he's teasing, and you can blend these in either way. But I'm going to tell you that if it's 52.4 for a 1-team, then the win rate needs to be 72.4 for a 2-team. Just the math done that way. Now with a 6-point extra kick on the line, then you're going to win a much higher percentage. But he was 70-31 or 69.3. That's well below the 72. So no matter how you mix those guys up, and you can mix them up any way you want. You might have some winners, you might have some losers, but again, you should be losing, right? You should be losing at that rate. Now, what I curiously do with him secondary, now he does still give some ATS picks from what I can get from his videos. It takes a long time to get his picks together, but he was a loser last year. He was a loser 2 years prior. Must have started 13 or something like that. I'm sorry, 14. But, overall, he still is 215 and 201, but that loses you money. That's only 51.7, so you're going to lose money every pick. I do take his teasers and just play him ATS fakely, right? I mean, he doesn't advocate that, but it's not doing it. Did a little bit better. Well, it broke even last year, but not doing as good as doing it regular. But I just try to do something with him, right? Because he does have very good commentary, but his picks not good, right? Two other people that are mainstays. Gino, kind of a comedian. He is a comedian, not kind of a comedian. Of course, he'll tell you he's 8-1-1, right? All this stuff like that. A couple other people like that, but he's a 50-50 picker, and you're gonna lose money like crazy. And Gio's sort of the godfather of that community. He's another guy that has lost money most years with his picks, and you're gonna lose money with him. You're gonna lose money at a slightly better rate than even Gino the drunk, right? A couple guys that I've just dropped out a long time ago, like El Presidor. I'm a 98% winner, right? Forget it. He picks every game, and he's just terrible. You can see that 1 year. I think I only tracked him for 1 year, and he just lost so much money. I'll never get my money back. The Football Guru, I don't see any value there. I picked this guy randomly. I got another video that just shows this guy was way off on ATS. So, I mean, that's where I sit. I sit at the top of the heap. But I'm always interested if you got somebody that makes picks, and they're free picks, and I can get them, and I can analyze their video, and I can compare their money stat to lines. Now, don't just tell me they won last year. I mean, we can do that. That's great. I'll be happy to track somebody who's got 1 year experience, but I'm going to try to track over years and try to see, where he really stacks up. Because you can do great 1 year. You can get on a hot roll. Everybody's got a hot roll. Everybody's got a good year, right? How do you do year after year? How do you do multiple games, getting a base behind you? And so, yeah, if there's somebody out there that I've just missed for some reason, shame on me, but go ahead and drop me a line. No problem. I'll go take a look and plow through their videos. Hopefully you can get the picks fairly easy, because that's pretty intensive. That takes away from my actual work of doing picking games and being a handicapper, but I'm willing to do it just to see where I rate. Again, I'm free picks, not even monetizing this channel. I know this video droned on, and some of my other ones do. Watch some of my other videos for some of my other concepts through the year. But otherwise, just come back every week, and I'll give a much more succinct summary of where I stand. And occasionally, I'll compare myself. Again, everybody in 2018 is pretty much, a couple guys have pretty good holes going on as far as digging themselves a hole. And I hope to, I'll probably drop a little bit like I normally do through by week 6 or 7. Certainly by week 7, I like to have that little bit of a spike. Having lost money last year, I was playing at the 60,000 level, and I did take a nice $15,000 haircut, a little bit less. I think it was 14 and change, just under 25% loss. Kind of put me in a foul mood. I either had to put 15 grand back in, which I did get on my MLB, and NBA did a little bit better. So I got some of that money back. I mean, my gambling pool is my gambling pool. But I could treat it just as well as the NFL gambling pool and call it 40 grand. In which case, if I win 20 grand and get back to 60, I got to, of course, I'm betting 60 right now. So if I get 20 grand, that's a 33% profit. And that might happen. That might happen the first couple weeks. I might have a decision to just say, you know what, especially if I make a little bit more and I get, if I put 25 up or 30 and get up to I can kind of take some money back out of there. So I got some personal decisions is what I'm saying. I might not ride it all the way out if I make that profit. I'm a little bit skittish. I haven't updated my algorithm in a few years. I used to update it regularly, but then it changed every year. And so I've held, and it's worked okay since 2015, but maybe I need to refresh. The league changes, rules change. People come around, so I need to think about that. But I'm not doing it this year. I'm just going to ride it out with this one. So yeah, my confidence maybe not as high. I'm just shook by 2017. Not that everybody was shook by it, but at least on this list with the picker, you just see how they did. I mean, I'm sure other people in the world did great, and maybe they did great on lines and over and unders and whatnot. But I'm where I am, so I appreciate it. I'm back again. If you, I'm free, and I always accept donations if you would like to donate, or if you win with my picks, that would be great. Don't just donate for the hell of it, for my value, but go ahead and bet my bets. If you win something, then yeah, a nice tip would be nice. Just send me an email and I'll send you a PayPal or something like that. Other than that, I'm not asking for money for either my website or picks or this video. All right, so hopefully you'll win some money with me. I'd appreciate that. I'd like to win some money this year. That'd be great. Otherwise, stay tuned. Have a good one. See ya.